Mr. President.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, my older daughter, Abigail, named for Abigail Adams, who urged her husband to remember the ladies, is 7. She's generous, silly, and so smart. She calls herself a maker kid and dreams of being an engineer or an Army nurse, but definitely not a helicopter pilot. My younger daughter, Miley, just turned 4. Her laugh is contagious, and early on during the pandemic, when I was mostly working from home, she proved that she was truly her mother's daughter by starting to pull pranks, including grabbing my phone and oopsie, hanging up on whoever was on the other line when I was trying to conduct a Zoom meeting or review some legislation instead of playing with her. But Abigail and Miley might not be here today if it weren't for the basic reproductive rights Americans have relied on for nearly 50 years. When Roe was decided in 1973, it changed the lives of so many women. It saved the lives of 14-year-olds who were the victims of rape or incest, who otherwise would have had to turn to back alleys and back rooms. It changed the lives of women who desperately wanted to be moms, but who found out that their pregnancies weren't viable, that they'd have to go through the pain and suffering of a trauma of a full term only to stillborn at the end of 9 months. And personally for me, it gave me my chance to be a mom. For I never would have had my creative, silly, drive me crazy, yet love them infinitely 2 daughters if Roe hadn't paved the way for women to make their own healthcare decisions, as I was only able to get pregnant through IVF, a fertility process that Roe lays the foundation for. Because of IVF, I got to experience all the joys of motherhood. Because of reproductive rights, my husband and I aren't just Tammy and Brian, we're mommy and daddy. Because of Roe and the rights and laws it protects, we are a family. Yet last week, we learned that the Supreme Court could be just weeks away from overturning Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, a decision that, if made final, would strip away reproductive rights for millions of women, forcing them to potentially live through the horrors and indignities that their grandmothers bore if they needed reproductive care. And this would just be the start. For while the anti-choice movement has been working for years, decades, to get to this moment, overturning Roe is not their end goal. They want a national ban on abortion, something the Republican Senate leader said was a possibility just last week. They want to undermine access to contraception. In some states, legislation has already been introduced that would make IVF a crime. In Oklahoma, one woman was even convicted of manslaughter for having a miscarriage. A miscarriage. Criminalized for having a miscarriage. I've had a miscarriage, and there are no words to describe what mothers feel in that moment. For me, I was overcome with the rawest, most painful emotion I'd ever experienced. In that moment, losing my baby felt more searing than anything I'd ever felt in my entire life. Yet if the GOP had its way, women may now have to live in fear that that worst moment of their lives may also send them to prison. And if extremists get what they're seeking, doctors who perform procedures such as dilation and curettage to help grieving families who've lost a pregnancy might be at risk of going to jail too. Doctors like the one who, after my own miscarriage, conducted the DNC to clear out my uterus that allowed me to immediately continue my dream of having a baby via IVF, my desperately wished-for second child, my beautiful rainbow baby, Miley. So let's be honest. What's happening is not about protecting life. If the anti-choice movement truly wanted to protect life, they'd stop trying to strip away Americans' health care. They would be putting all of their efforts into addressing the growing maternal mortality crisis that has taken a tragic number of Black mothers' lives. They would be pushing for desperately needed policies that support parents, like affordable childcare and paid parental leave. If Republicans actually cared about being pro-life, they'd do something, anything, to stand up to the National Rifle Association. So no, this isn't about saving lives. This isn't about looking out for families. It's about getting a slap on the back from their base and exerting even more control over women's bodies. It's about deepening divides between the haves and the have-nots. It's about making it even harder to undo centuries of harm unleashed by systemic racism and economic injustice, systems under which women of color have suffered the most. Look, I know that a lot of us are tired from the seemingly endless fight to protect our most basic human rights, but we can do more. We have to do more. We must. Congress itself has the power. We have the ability to vote tomorrow to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, which would codify Roe v. Wade once and for all. Because let me be clear, women seeking care should not be ashamed. The people who should feel shame are those forcing these women to live through unnecessary pain and suffering. The people who should feel shame are those who claim to be pro-life, yet would let a mother die in childbirth for an unviable pregnancy, who refuse to expand Medicaid, who believe guns should be easy to get but basic health care impossible to find. These are the people who should be shamed. These are the people who have no shame. And I'd be damned if I let my daughters grow up in a country that gives them fewer rights than their mom had. So here I am today, fighting for a tomorrow that doesn't look like our yesterday, because in that yesterday, those of us with uteruses were treated as second-class citizens. And I didn't learn to fly Black Hawk helicopters, go to war for this nation, nearly lose my life fighting for the rights enshrined in that Constitution I protected, only to come back home and have those same rights stripped away from the next generation of girls who simply want to be able to follow their own dreams, like I did mine. To me, it comes down to this. Women should be allowed to make their healthcare decisions without Mitch McConnell's voice or Brett Kavanaugh's face haunting them at their OBGYN appointments. So shame on those who want to take us back to the pre-Roe back alleys. Shame on those who don't dare regulate guns, but want to regulate our uteruses. I will fight with everything I've got to keep us out of those back alleys, because it is the least that the women who came before us and fought for these rights deserve. And it is the least that our own daughters need. So enough with the hypocrisy, enough with the misogyny, enough that some men in hallowed halls in D.C. arguing that they know better than women in Illinois or Arizona and Missouri. We can and we must do better. That means proving that we care about women every day of the year, not just on one Sunday in May. That means codifying Roe now. Let's vote.